Well, there's a lot of different things out there that trying to understand the hobby industry and what's the advantages of it, why you want to do it, how important it is. And, me as a former athlete, always wanted to have my picture on a card, but that didn't happen. So I'm stuck talking about it, but it's going to be a really fun podcast. My name is Jeff Cardozo. That is Jameel Muhammad. He is the originator of the Meelypop shop. So this is called the MeelyPod podcast, a perfect way to do it and a perfect guy to be doing it with because Jameel is well known in the industry and has done many, many great things in the sports card world, in the hobby world, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Jameel, what's up, man?
Man, first show.
Yeah.
We get to hang out together and talk about sports cards and the hobby. I've been looking forward to something like this for a long time. And it's funny, so many people have asked me, like, hey, why don't you get on a podcast? Why don't you do this? And truth be told, it was just time and not having the right pieces. And so your beautiful face showed up. And partnering with Weeby and the whole team here, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're also in this amazing podcast room. Gator, like, to the nth degree right here at Steve Spurrier Way, as you guys know, here in Spurrier's restaurant, which I'm excited for, just to be able to embrace the atmosphere of sports as we talk about the hobby, as well as other things in the hobby, collectibles, TCG, autographs, and hopefully this podcast will be unique enough to show people like there is nothing in this space right now that's talking about authenticity, teaching people, providing nuggets, giving people like real advice on what to do. And of course, we have two card shops. We have one here in Gainesville, Florida, home of the Gators, and we have one now in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is upstate, they call it, right by Greenville. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. We put a new shop up there inside of a rec facility, which is wild because it's a basketball court 5 feet from the front entrance of the store there. So we'll have a lot to talk about between the shop perspective and, of course, all the hobby happenings, everything that's going on. It seems like every week there's something crazy happening, new announcements. We got all the manufacturers involved. You have the wars with Upper Deck Panini and Fanatics, and we're just going to have a ton of fun. Also, maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the guests. We can't tell you the VIP list yet, but we want to have a guest on at every single one of our shows, and that's going to be, I think, a cool part.
Yeah, and I think that's the unique part because athletes are doing this, and it's really cool for them to say, hey, I know this person, and I'm on this particular whatever it is, but I'm also a fan, and I'm also collecting, and I'm also investing, and I'm also understanding the importance of what this industry can really do. So that's going to be a really fun part. We've got contacts with so many people out there in the professional athlete world, and certainly all the people behind the scenes in the hobby that have made this big and great. And that's where, I go back to really proud of you and what you've been able to do, because you started this little thing in little old Gainesville in this little random shop that was kind of not known, and it's grown up to be what it is. It's been fun to see that process and all the hard work, everything that you've had to go through to inevitably make it what it is today.
Ups and downs. There's been a lot of ups and we've had a lot of downs, but the crazy thing is it's just been a constant ride, and every single, I was just sharing with you guys before, all the different things that happen in business and in the card shop world where I was an occupational therapist. My wife was a teacher, and we took the step of faith to open a brick and mortar store, and it just exploded. And so there's the fun, and there's also the trepidation of entering into the business world, managing people, right, working with employees, handling customers, the good and the bad, right? We can talk about some of that as well, which will be fun in this podcast. But learning to truly listen to people in the hobby, because there is so many stories interwoven with cards, with collectibles. I mean, you just talked about your dreams of having your picture on a piece of cardboard. I mean, think about all these guys that we're talking about now that are opening packs and they're pulling themselves, or they're doing their own podcast and they're talking about what it's like to sign 50,000 stickers for Topps or whatever for a card. These kinds of things that aren't really discussed much in the hobby. So we're gonna have fun with guests. It'll be maybe athletes. It'll be maybe some industry folk, Maybe we'll have some super collectors on. Or maybe we'll have some card shop owners on, because I think that is one element that's really not really been broached is the truth of the card shop. And I have a chance now to run 2 of them, and I know you've been in many times and busted a lot of Bowman and a lot of things in the shop, but I think the uniqueness of the community in the shop is also not discussed enough. So I'm looking forward to that, and just sharing the Meelypops brand with everybody. Between that, I think a lot of people, they may not know. I mean, we've been in this business for really 15 years. I've been a lifelong collector. St. Louis Cardinals. This is a hat, by the way. Jeff hooked me up. It's got there it is. There's the spring training Florida. I think it's 2017. But I grew up collecting Cardinals cards in St. Louis. Ozzie Smith and Ray Langford and Lee Smith and Tom Pagnozzi and all these guys that were my heroes back then. And so I love cards. I love the ins and outs of everything that come in with the hobby. And hopefully you'll get to hear that. And
David Eckstein, former Gator, World Series MVP, a former teammate of mine. And even though I never got my name on that cardboard, I've been a part of this community for a really long time, broadcasting many of the Gator sports, and obviously have interviewed so many great people over the times, been a part of so many great games and national championships and different things that I've gotten to do, and certainly love doing it. But hooking up with Jameel, I think, is a really cool opportunity, just because of his care and his want, and just there's so many people that I think give you bad advice in this world, and you don't understand, or they're trying to manipulate you or mess with you or do something. This dude's genuine right here next to me, and so it's really fun to I think be around good people, and that's exactly what you are. So this will certainly be a lot of fun, a lot of different things that I'm going to learn about. I mean, I sit there and I remember open up the 86, 87 tops that I thought were really cool, and now they're worth like a penny.
Yeah.
It was
maybe
fun
a little
collecting
less.
sets back in the day.
Yeah, I mean that's the crazy thing is, like, there's the nostalgia of you as a kid growing up. I'm a '90s kid, so the flea markets, you know what I mean, the card shops, the going to the malls. Right? Who knows what that term means anymore? Shopping malls, but like going to the malls and like just having fun in the hobby. Trading, bringing cards to school and getting in trouble, right? Trading with your friends at lunch. Like, these kinds of things have morphed into 2024. It's just different now. And a lot of people have asked me in the shop, I remember doing this. I haven't seen a card shop in forever. And the truth is, the last 20 years, you just haven't realized it's just shifted and it's morphed to maybe online, social media. Maybe there's more interaction going on. Maybe there's more big events. We're going to talk a lot about card shows. This world of card shows has exploded, and Fanatics just even announced this past week about the Fanatics event that they're holding with, which we'll be a guest at in New York, where they're looking to create Comic-Con like experiences with card shows. So Durant's going to be there, Ionescu, Derek Jeter, Hulk Hogan. I mean, there's a ton of like A-list, celebs are going to be at these events, and so I think we're seeing just a shift happening where the experiential, the community side is just changed in 2024. So I want to touch on some of that as well, and we're looking for good advertisers. We're looking for good folks to jump in and be a part of this. I think that you're going to really see a gain, because the authenticity that's going to be brought about by this podcast is going to grow quickly. I know I speak fast, so there's going to be a lot of content in these podcasts as well. So it'll be a thing that hopefully people can take a lot away from. Just like you said, I mean, you've learned so much. I mean, I don't want to call you a noob, Jeff, but I mean, you were initially like, hey man, and I like cards, and then he came in, and now he's a expert on Bowman Chrome, and tell me all about Wyatt Langford, and which is another guy we'll talk about here shortly. But just the fact that you've grown so much, and you've been able to do it with your son. I remember when your daughters came in too, and we were talking about like Stranger Things cards or stuff like that. Just being able to connect with your kids, I see it all the time in the shop, which is beautiful.
Even Taylor Swift cards got her excited, one of the family members. So if you were putting sports cards in your spokes back in the day of your bikes in the 50s, and you ruined a Mickey Mantle rookie or something like that by doing it because you thought it sounded cool, or if you're a newbie, or if you're certainly just getting into the industry, but you're a part of these breaks that Jameel does and all night long, this podcast is for you. So we'll take a break. We'll tell you about the state of where the hobby industry is right now.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 280 discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Melton fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
This is Jameel, owner of the Meelypop shop, Gainesville's home for collectibles of all sorts, including every single type of sports cards, whether it be Panini, Topps, Leaf, Upper Deck. We have it. Come on in, get yourself a box, a pack, get yourself some supplies, get into our breaks, get your Pokemon, get your Yu-Gi-Oh! All the other different kinds of TCG products that we carry and shop are always fully in stock. You can find our stuff on our website as well, MeelyPops.com. That's another way you can interact with the store, or you can just come into the shop. We're located off 39th Avenue by I-75 behind Walgreens and Sonny's. Stop on by. We're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can check us out on our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to see you. Come on out to the shop, have some fun, be a part of the card community here in Gainesville, and always go Gators.
Welcome back to the MeelyPod podcast. Jeff and Jameel here with you. And the industry has certainly changed a bunch since the brick and mortar store started, but I know that's a big part of what you do and the community here in Gainesville, Florida, where it all started. You know, I think the neat thing is to walk in there sometimes and you're giving out packs to kids and they get that opportunity to open it up. So for those that don't know where the original store is,
The OG store?
Yes, the OG right there off of 39th by Santa Fe College. Let's clue them in.
Yeah, I mean, our shop is the old Santa Fe College bookstore.
Yeah.
So if you're in town or you're in North Florida, you may know it from that. And we converted it back in 2018. We had our grand opening with Percy Harvin, my guy, and it was an awesome event and kind of a splash into the area. And the shop is not what it looks like at all back then. Fast forward to now, we have expanded to more units, more space, created breaking areas, put in a card bar. The inventory has probably 15x from when we started initially, and it has been an explosion of just community and, like you said, kids and families and people. We not only focus on sports cards, we do a lot of heavy stuff in the TCG side. So when I say TCG, that's trading card games, that's Pokemon, that's One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z. Disney has one now called Lorcana, which is huge. Elsa is selling for $2,500,
Wow.
Jeff. So
Let it go.
Let it go is right.
Let it go.
I mean, 2,500 or keep the PSA 10. So that world has just like been so unique to bringing in the 6-year-old with his grandpa, or the investment banker who wants to put some money into some Wembenyama Prism, or the family that comes in and buys a box every week and rips. It's just become such a community thread. And so that's where our shop is. It's here on right off the interstate, actually,
Yeah.
which we can talk a little bit about proximity for people who ever want to start thinking about opening up shops. We are right off the interstate, and we bring people in from South Georgia, the Panhandle. I mean, we're not talking 30-minute drive here, folks. We're talking a 2-hour drive. Leesburg, Ocala, Palatka. So everywhere in this north central Florida, we have people, and South Georgia, coming to our shop. And you'll find that it's become a destination for a lot of people. A lot of people find it. People say to me, "Why are you not in a high traffic area?" Blah, 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 blah. Well, because people already just find our shop.
Yeah.
It's a niche shop, and they'll find their way to us. We do events, trading days. Pokemon. We have a Pokemon tournament last month where we had 52 people play in it. We'd have to put people outside. With so many people show up to it. It was amazing. We've had autograph signings. You've been instrumental with the voice on the radio, bringing in the Gator faithful from when we've had the Anthony Richardson signings, when we've had Brady Singer, when we had Judd Fabian, when we had Percy Harvin going back, Jerome Scarlett, Steve Spurrier. I mean, these list goes on and on and on, and we'll be looking to do more of that. That's a world I think that people don't really understand in the card shop space, so I'd love to talk more about that as well in future episodes. But we've had our shop now 6 years in June. And then we opened a shop in February in South Carolina inside what's called the Star Center. It's this massive sports complex in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And it's right in between Clemson and South Carolina Gamecocks. Well, Gamecocks, you guys know a little bit about with Spurrier and Dabo. And that rivalry is wild. It's just like Florida State. They hate each other. They're kicking each other at ankles. I mean, it's the wildest, like, just seeing. And again, I don't have a country draw, but getting to see people, talk trash in country slang is the funniest thing in the world to me. So that has been a whole new culture. And then you got the Bulldogs in Athens, only an hour and a half away too. So you got those guys coming out, and they're black and red. So you guys know how much Gators love Bulldogs. So so that's a fun kind of new shop experience. Building that out, we had actually our grand opening, and what we decided to do was, instead of having a guest or something like, which we did have guests, we held a card show. So we held a card show, and we had no idea what the expectations, and we called it the Upstate Card Show. And we had about 1,000 people show up, and we had Phil Maffa from Clemson, and we had just people come from the community, and it was an amazing experience. Had free stuff for kids everywhere. Every vendor was giving out stuff, so kids are going crazy. And so, like, that kind of element, right? You know, talking through those things and how to build community will be another part I want to bring to this podcast to teach people. Like, and you can apply that to a lot of things. You don't have to just apply it to sports cards, just business in general. Community gatherings in general. I think we have developed a niche in how to grow that. And build that. So, those are our two shops.
And maybe grow even more. You mentioned the card bar. If it turns into a real bar, we could have some evening action and and some fun times going with that. But
shout out Tim. He works with us. He was an old bartender at.
So you could certainly sling some stuff around.
Yeah, sure.
That'll be good. Well, and the unique part about all this is just what happens and how it happens and who do you go with and who do you try to buy? And there's the obvious names. Wemby. Like, I think everybody knew that he was going to be legit. He was going to be the person. But there's a lot of number ones out there that, oh my gosh, there's this expectation of, wow, we want to get this guy or girl, and then it amounts to nothing. So there's a real fine line of trying to go for what you want to do. I mean, look at what Patrick Mahomes has done to this world. And if I wasn't an idiot back in the day and came to you and said, hey, let me get some of these number 15 rookies, then probably have a lot of money right now. So it's really a fine line, right, of trying to figure out who's going to be good and how you go about it.
Yeah, and there's an element now in cards where a lot of people are putting the potential on the front side of the purchase. A good example is Wyatt Langford, right? I mean, we love Wyatt. Trust me,
no doubt.
We want Wyatt to do amazing things, but we don't know what his career is going to be like. But people are paying prices for Wyatt that are looking similar to, Mike Trout's and, those kind of Ohtani level pricing. Maybe not Ohtani level yet, but those high-end prices on the early Bowman stuff. So part of that is probably due to scarcity because there's not a lot of Wyatt autographs out. He only has that in Bowman Draft, in Bowman's Best, and some USA products from Panini. Doesn't have a lot of autographs. So that's part of it. But the other part of it is the hype that people have already placed on him. So when we talk investment and when we talk to people who come into the shop, I always give them that kind of rundown. Is it the right time to buy? Just like anything. Usually when the hype is the highest and someone's won a championship, it's probably not the best time to buy something.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, great example, was after he they won. They're back-to-back champions, right? But after they didn't look so great and they lost some games in the season, his stuff came down like 15-20%. People were buying Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and it's like, this guy is Mahomes, right? So, but just the market trends, and if you bought it then, you could have made even a 15-20% gain just in that, him coming back to win. So there's a lot of elements in cards. Timing is so important. Wembanyama is a great example you bring up because I think about him. He's one guy who's actually met expectation, just like LeBron did in 03, and then in a way surpassed it a little bit. Most blocks in the NBA per game. Right? He's probably a candidate, should win Defensive Player Rookie of the Year, probably won't, or Defensive Player of the Year, probably won't. He'll probably win Rookie of the Year. But what he's doing in the NBA and his cards now, people are saying, look, I don't want to move these cards. I'm going to hold on to them. So then it creates a little bit more of a demand for cards. Cards start to rise. And we'll talk about ways to monitor that, and whether it be eBay, whether it be Card Ladder, whether it be looking at trends on apps like Alt. And I'll teach people about these little things. There's some plugs for you companies if you want to jump on in, because we'll be talking about how we utilize those tools in the real card place. And I know even talking to Freddie recently, showing him some things on eBay, how to manipulate the app so that you're actually getting the right data versus just looking at listings that are just priced. So little things like that, nuances that I think people miss sometimes. How to read between the lines, how to follow trends, how to look at things when it comes to cards. We want to make sure you guys know that. Education is key. I pride our shop, and I think that a lot of our customers are educated. They come in and they learn whether they should grade this card, whether they should sell this card. Is it a good time to maybe trade this guy to another? Those kinds of questions we have, and we want to take some of that too. So we'll build that into the podcast as well with listener response.
And there might be some sticker shock, so to speak. Back when I was buying cards, it was 50 cents and had a piece of gum in it.
Yeah.
And now there's certainly a lot more than that, so it may take away from kids going in there and enjoying it, but there is a scarcity, right? And that's why you number all this. Back then, there was a million different cards and everything was going on. So that's that value now that you look at. And if you get a one-of-one Wemby or a Langford autograph, like that can really change something in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the golden ticket, I think, mentality of Willy Wonka, and shout out to just the what he did with that. You literally buying chocolate bars and getting this insert of a golden ticket, right? That's what you're doing with cards. You can maybe eat the gum still from back in the day. I wouldn't eat the gum. They don't put gum in packs anymore. But I mean, the Wembanyama Black True Prism was hit, and the guy was offered. This is insider stuff that I heard. $1.2 million for the card, and he turned it down.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, this is a card out of a box that cost maybe $1,000. A pack was probably around $100, somewhere in that range. And you now have a 1.5. Some estimates are at 2.0 million for that card, right? So there's these massive chases. Wyatt Langford is another example you bring up. His Superfractor 101. Baseball is very different than basketball. It recently sold for $60,000 or $50,000. So I mean, these are cards that are not something you could have found back in the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s. So the limited production run has helped a ton. And I think also the hype that the companies have built around some of this. Another great example is Caitlin Clark. She just signed with Panini. She's going to have some massive cards coming out next year. And I think women's sports, you're seeing it, specifically the WNBA right now, a lot of attention on it, which is great. I think it's great for cards. It's great for women's sports. It's great for just the hobby. Great for girls to get into collecting. I mean, it's very hard for me to break that wall down sometimes. And I'd love just to meet some young gals that love Caitlin Clark and just to be able to give them some rookie cards or something. So, it's definitely changed, man. A little different than when we were doing it back in the day.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. But, and again, I think bringing new people into the industry and understanding the hobby and what it's all about. Mention the Taylor Swift cards and, that. I know I've seen Ronda Rousey in your shop. So there's a lot of just what you wouldn't think of has cards actually do have cards.
Yeah, I mean, the non-sports world, right? So you could say there's sports, there's non-sports, and then you have kind of like the TCG world of animated and stuff like that, anime. And all three of those components, every single one of them, there's fandom. Mm-hmm. So, whether it be a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man first autograph card that I sold last year for $10K, wow. Right? I mean, that's a card there wasn't many of them, but people wanted it. You know what I mean? So there's something for everybody in cards. There's things like sketch cards now where it's like literally artists who are drawing on a card, a one-of-one, and they're putting them in packs of certain characters or certain, they even have sketch cards for sports. And so like there's so many ways that people can find their niche in this hobby that's just really just blown up. But I'm excited to see the future. There's a lot of things coming too. We'll share that in this podcast. Just the changes and the ebbs and flows of what's going to be coming in the hobby. The opening day patch was a big thing. I don't know if you know about it, but with every player who makes their MLB debut now, Topps Fanatics have put a patch on their jersey. And what they do is at the end of the game, they take the patch off and they put it in one card. So you not only have a one-of-one autograph card, but you have literally that player's opening day debut patch in a card. So like Volpe had his come out last year, and you had Jordan Walker and different guys like that. So there's a world of connection that's way different than what we once knew.
Yeah, pretty special stuff. And speaking of autographs, what about real autographs? I know that's a limited part of what you do, but you can walk in there and I saw a Wemby jersey hanging up in the shop, or a Tiger Woods autograph, and he's in the Masters again. And it's just such a thing. Like, where has that part of the world gone?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world of autographs that I think people don't understand, right? So we'll talk a ton about, just when you're buying autographs, what you be looking for, right? Third-party authentication. Actually, how third-party authentication works, I'd love to have, and we'll probably have them on the podcast, some of the leading authenticators from maybe JSA, PSA, DNA, or Beckett, where they can kind of talk to you guys and understand, like, this is how they're looking at this stuff to evaluate it. And then also there's people who sign a ton of autographs versus people who don't sign anything, who hate signing autographs. So then how does that differ? How does that work when it comes to evaluating that stuff? And then, of course, the medium on how something is signed, the ink that's signed. Is it a marker versus a ballpoint pen versus a paint pen? There's this whole world of that. So autographs is a big part of what we do in the shop. We love to connect people to get an autograph from a celebrity or a sports player. But there's a world of that in the investment side, that you're really investing in ink, and how do you then curtail that moving forward? What do you do if I just hand you a Babe Ruth autographed certified baseball. What do you do with that? Or if you have a mantle that someone passed down, how do you preserve those kinds of things? So these are things that people don't have a vast understanding of, and I want to unravel that. I want to make sure that you guys are understanding that and can take home something.
Yeah, the educational part of this is something that I think everybody should know, and it's a big deal. I mean, there's a difference of getting a regular pen or a Sharpie on a baseball, or the certain color on a football, and all the different things that are happening. So I think we're all going to want to meet a hero or see somebody like that, and if it ever happens, you certainly want to capture it the right way, and you don't want it to fade. And I know I've got several baseballs where, well, that used to say Pete Rose, and now you can barely read what it says just because it wasn't done the right way. Yeah, so a lot of that is a big part, and I think what is going to make this special, just to understand to do it the right way and make sure all that happens. We'll take another time out. We'll come back and give you plenty more right after this.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
This is Jameel, owner of the Meelypops shop, Gainesville's home for collectibles of all sorts, including every single type of sports cards, whether it be Panini, Topps, Leaf, Upper Deck. We have it. Come on in, get yourself a box, a pack, get yourself some supplies, get into our breaks, get your Pokemon, get your Yu-Gi-Oh! All the other different kinds of TCG products that we carry and shop are always fully in stock. You can find our stuff on our website as well, MeelyPops.com. That's another way you can interact with the store, or you can just come into the shop. We're located off 39th Avenue by I-75 behind Walgreens and Sonny's. Stop on by. We're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can check us out on our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to see you. Come on out to the shop, have some fun, be a part of the card community here in Gainesville, and always go Gators.
Welcome back to the MeelyPod podcast. Jeff and Jameel here with you. He's wearing the Cardinal hat. He told you about that in his beginnings in St. Louis way back when. I'm going to ask you, so how did you get down to Gainesville?
So I came for college. Yeah. Went to college. Met my beautiful wife, and we got married and decided to stay here. When everyone else was like, "We're out," we said, "We're staying."
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I never thought you'd stick around, and you can be a great place to raise a family. You got some beaches and different directions away, and certainly all the athletics are really darn good.
Yeah,
and
very good.
Eventually you get to hang out at a place like Steve Spurrier's. So that is a good thing. And that had to be cool back in the day, because you were around for the Spurrier era.
Yeah.
And watching the heyday of the Fun and Gun.
Yeah, seeing Fun and Gun, and then coming to college, right, in 2003. Leaving in 2008, think about the Gator years for that, which I'd love to tell you stories about what happened, after that. But and then I remember even selling on the streets Tebow cards, the first Tebow cards that came out of Press Pass back in the day. People were buying them in town for $5 and $10. These are cards that are worth 50 cents, So so just that whole world of Gator athletics has been, and hopefully we'll have some really cool guests on through that as well.
Yeah, we will. We'll certainly do that. All right, so I'm going to ask you some rapid fire stuff.
All right, rapid fire.
Make it
bang, bang.
happen. So, why this podcast? Why are we going to do this thing?
I think it's needed. That's the answer. There's nothing in this space that is authentic, that is actually educational, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun in it, but we're also going to be bringing in perspective every single show from guests outside of your beautiful face and my ugly mug. So I think it's a needed thing in the hobby.
And when's it going to happen?
So we're going to run this podcast. It'll be on Thursdays, 12:30 to 1:30. It won't be live. It'll be pre-recorded, but we will that's when it's on Thursday.
Content. We've talked about a lot of different things. I know there's certainly going to be many things, but what's the nuts and bolts of what you want this to be?
Yeah. So outside of the guests, which would be a big feature every week, which we'll put in our titles, we want to have things looking at trends in the hobby, hot cards in the hobby, hot players in the hobby, definitely segments where we look at new releases, things that are happening in the shop. And on top of that, I'd love to really dive into some videos that I'm starting to see, viral videos, and videos that I would call or maybe influencer type, and maybe educate people a little bit on the influencer, because that is a massive, people don't realize it, but my dad and guys in the shop, their dads are following these people. And it's like, sometimes this is not the best advice, and sometimes some correction needs to be had. So I think we'll have some fun with that as well. Maybe we'll stir the pot.
Well, and a lot of people can be influenced by many different things, and there's ways to go, ways to listen, but I think we've got them all covered on this thing, don't we?
Yeah, we got them. We'll have some fun, and it's not just cards too. We'll talk about all collectibles. We're gonna dive into a bunch of different things. So don't tune out if you just think it's sports cards. There's gonna be a lot more beyond sports cards.
And then in so many different platforms as well. You might choose to have your favorite, but we'll have them all covered with Facebook, Instagram, all the cool things that you're on, plus many more.
Yeah, the podcast world. I mean, this is new to me, but I know about Spotify and Apple and Facebook, YouTube, all the different components of it. But anywhere you listen to your podcast or you download, you'll be able to access it. We'll be on, I think, 37 different platforms. So looking forward to that.
So that's then great for advertisers, of course, and many ways for this thing to be seen, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to advertise, I would not wait, because we're going to have certain segments. We're going to be talking a lot about very specific thing where I think you're going to have a very potent type audience. It's not going to just always be a casual listener. Although we'll bring them in, we're going to have a audience that I think is going to respond very well to that. So if you want to advertise, reach out to Freddie, my buddy. He's got, you can see his up here. It's superimposed above my head. You can contact him there, email or call him, or you can contact the shop through email, shopmeelypops@gmail.com. That's an easy way to get a hold of me, and we can work it out with you.
All right. Well, we are two different dudes, but you'll learn to know that we'll have a lot of fun and certainly bring you a lot of content. But why is this going to be different than most of the other things that are out there?
So I've learned just in the hobby world over the past 15 years, just watching, that there's a lot of trade secrets. There's a lot of things that people don't like to share. There's a lot of things that happen in the shop and behind the scenes that people don't want to talk about, or maybe they want to keep to themselves. And I think there is nothing where we are really peeling back and unraveling some of that. So that's going to be number one. I think we're going to be very raw, very honest, and very real in this podcast. On top of that, the authenticity and having somebody who's been in all aspects of the shop. For those of you who know, I take the trash out, I grade cards, I sleeve dime boxes, I price $50,000 cards. I mean, I'm in between everything. So I want to give you that perspective and the knowledge base that comes from running the shop, being in the community, going to card shows. We've done the National for the last 8 years, right? Being at these mega events to be able to give you the pulse and teach you, what's going on. So I think it's going to be very different. No knock on other podcasts. Other podcasts I've seen are great. I just don't feel like they have the substance that I think we're going to be bringing. They're not going to have the guests that we're going to be bringing. And then, of course, they don't have as much fun as Jeff and I know how to have fun. So.
Well, and I want to have some fun, too, with this because, as you talk about the lingo and all the different things, you're in the world, but you talk about ripping a box. Somebody might think, oh, you're tearing a card in half. What's that mean?
Yeah, I mean, just the idea of there's like the nostalgia of opening a pack, right? It makes that sound, and we'll have some ASMR pack openings in here one day, and maybe we can have a young lady speaking soothing sounds to us as we open up packs. But the thing about the lingo is that once you're immersed in it, just like any kind of hobby, right? You're going to start to realize, what does a PC mean? You know what I mean? What is it? What are breaks? And what is a PYT versus a RD versus a draft break? Like those kinds of things will come to you, and I'm happy to teach you, Jeff.
And like a dime box? You're saying all these things?
Yeah. I mean, that's where Jeff's going to pull his Selma Hayek PSA 10s out of, the dime box. But no, I mean, just boxes and deal boxes. We have a thing in our shop where we got 50% off boxes. Every single day I go in, people are there thumbing through, digging through boxes. And it's like fairy dust, when they're doing this, because it just shows that people care and they love to go through that in the shop. So we'll talk about that lingo.
And the importance of protection, too. I know, now that they're having these thicker cards, you've got cases for thicker cards. You don't want to try to jam it into one of the old school cases that are there. So there's a lot to this where people just don't understand the right way to really secure stuff and preserve it.
Yeah, I'll teach you how to snap some sleeves. Teach you. That'll be one of our DIYs in the podcast. But no, there's little things that you can really screw up a card. People forget it. It's you get a 3.5 by 2.5 piece of cardboard, and it's cut in a certain way, and it's got a different plot. And so people now are starting to mess with them in terms of for grading, and they destroy the cards. And it's like there's an element of knowing how to handle and talk through that, which hopefully we can ooze out into the podcast as well.
Yeah, in my grading world, it was C's. They get degrees, so
Yeah.
you're all excited, but
Not a card.
you don't want to see in a card, right? So it's a numbered process, and I think a lot of people maybe don't understand how you do that, and why is it an 8? Why is it 8.5? Why is it certainly a 10?
Yeah.
There's a lot of intricacies with it in there.
Yeah, the grading scales, and then you have the different companies. You got PSA, BGS, SGC, CGC. You have all these levels to it. That's just sports cards. And we talked the coin grading and comic grading and all the other elements. So there are intricacies to all of that, and then we'll talk through. A PSA 10 to some people is not a BGS 10, which is not a CGC 10 pristine. So it's just a fun way to kind of conversate as well.
Well, and getting away from the sports card world, I know that there's. In Vegas, there's every kind of con out there, convention and different things. These have become a big deal in the world, right? I know we mentioned David Eckstein earlier. His wife was a part of Star Wars, and just to see her or that voice, it's a big deal now in this industry.
Ahsoka Tano. For those of you at home, Ashley Eckstein, David Eckstein. We got all sorts of Gator love here today. When it comes to conventions and events, I think that is the world where people, it's almost like family reunions, like on a 10,000, 20,000 scale, people attending these events. We're starting to see more and more people now attend these massive events, and I think they're going to keep growing. Our state doesn't have a great one. You know what I mean? That's something I think we'll see in the state of Florida down the line. We just, had a chance to, or we have a chance to go to the Fanatics, and we have the National coming up, which we'll talk to leading up to the National in this podcast, which will be great. Maybe I'll fly Jeff out somehow. Maybe we can broadcast live from the National. But we're going to have some fun with this, and I think that the card show element is a huge part.
Are you starting to see that those type of people, or even the athletes that are known really around not only the United States but the world, do they like doing this? Do they like going to these types of things and meeting fans?
Yeah, so there's that side of yes, and then there's a side of trying to play a little inconspicuous. You know what I mean? You got people like Mike Trout collecting cards right now. You got people, Antoine Griezmann, one of the biggest soccer players in the world right now, plays for France and I think Atletico right now. People who are big into cards, and LeBron talking about his rookie card, Mahomes talking about his rookie card. You have these things, and it's more part of culture now. Whereas the vernacular 10, 15 years ago, where people were like, nah, nobody's doing that. Yeah. So we hope to have some guests on that will talk about why they love cards, but also we'll take a look at what we're seeing in the culture.
I think looking back in my day too, I found a Joe Montana rookie card, and it was like the coolest card ever for me, and that's a couple $100.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's the highest valued card that you've ever touched these beautiful hands with?
Ooh, touched? So I did hold a Honus Wagner, one of the
Did you really?
Yeah, at the National. I think I took a picture with it. I think that card it was a PSA 4. Multi-million. There is, if we're talking about obviously the T206 Honus Wagner. I missed one of the Topps conferences where they were able to look at the Arizona Diamondbacks owner collection, which he has the 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10, which is valued at anywhere between $20 and $30 million. So I didn't get a chance to hold that one. But, I've had some opportunities to hold some really expensive. Just at the National a couple years ago, it was $1 million Luka card that was, that I was holding. And so it's a wild world. You just have to kind of zone out. You don't want to think about what you're holding, because if you do, then you're going to shake or whatever. And we've hit some big cards in our breaks too. Yeah. $100,000 cards, $50,000 cards, where it's a wild, which we'll talk more about as well. Breaks world is a crazy world.
Well, and the neat part too, in a crazy world of people being competitive and doing different things, it seems like you get along with, and we'll have them on the show, but a lot of people in the industry, like they're buddies. You're not trying to, I want this card, so I'm going to manipulate this guy. Like it's a fun world to be in.
Yeah. So there's two sides to it. There are people that are shady and that are going to do those things. Sure. And then there's the side of it where you have authentic people. And hopefully you guys will see that in this podcast. Yeah. We'll bring on guests like that are authentic, and people in the industry that are authentic. And like you said, you got athletes now who are trading cards with just somebody they met on Instagram, or somebody who tweeted him on Twitter, X, sorry. So those kinds of things are happening left and right. It's a wild world, and I'm excited to share it with you with the MeelyPod podcast.
Well, and I want you to share everything out there with everybody. So website-wise, how can they look up the stuff?
MeelyPops.com is the easiest way. We also have an eBay store that's got a pretty vast inventory, And then we do a lot with ComC, comc.com, where a huge inventory on that. So that's Meelypops on those platforms.
And then the breaks you can access through that, right?
Yeah, so our website, you can buy the breaks, or you can just pop on Instagram Live. We have a TikTok shop now. We have a Whatnot shop. We have a Fanatics Live account. So we're on all of these different platforms streaming, and we'll talk about that as well, because I think it's really unique what's happening on the interactive side on, this little device, what you can do and break cards and open cards across the world. So, you can break on all those platforms with us.
So understanding, learning, figuring out why this is something that you should be doing, and more important than anything, the authenticity of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what Jameel is going to bring to the table. And again, we'll have lots of fun doing it. We'll have some really cool guests of professional athletes and really dive into, hey, what was it like the first time you ever opened a pack and there was your card? Like, how surreal was that? Or how does mom and dad react when, they get to do this and be a part of stuff? So a lot of really fun, really cool kind of behind the scenes moments that we'll be able to offer on this is going to be special.
You want to tune in. I really think this is going to be something that, and I'm super thankful for Jeff to be a part of this, because the knowledge base, the sexy voice, of course, come on, and also just the ability to talk about sports and athletics, the knowledge base is going to be super key to kind of bringing this all together. Plus, he's gotten into cards the last couple of years. So in a way, you kind of have your exhibit A here for trying to learn the hobby and the questions that might come up that I may already think, I wouldn't have thought about that. So I'm excited to see Jeff's perspective on a lot of this stuff as well. We'll have cards in here. I'm sure we'll open stuff and we'll have fun.
I need Luka to win the MVP. I got one of his rookies, so make that thing skyrocket.
Prism, right? Yeah.
He is the MVP. That is Jameel Muhammad. Check him out. Again, so many different ways you can follow him. Just search Meelypops and all that great stuff will be there. I am Jeff Cardozo, and again, we'll be here every single week for you, bringing you all the content in so many different ways. Jameel, thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to it. MeelyPod. Let's go.
That's what it's all about.